right back.
Joan?
No.
Okay.
My mom's been driving me a lot recently, so she's just staying here because it's like 50 minutes. But what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that if, like, looking to be dropped off at the T station or something, perhaps we could have you sit in on one of like our strategy sessions, more to just see what that environment is like. I don't know if that would be interesting or compelling to you at all, but that was
What time would that be at?
Right after.
going right after this.
I can do that. I just didn't eat anything yet, so I didn't want to be like on
That's totally fine.
my not my A game, but like my A minus game. So okay.
I was gonna have Callie do Instagram stories.
Cool.
So you don't have to worry about that.
Hi,
Kevin.
how you doing?
Doing great.
What's your first name again?
Aaron.
Aaron, hi.
It's nice to meet you.
Hi,
This is Hannah.
I'm Hannah.
Hannah, how are you?
Nice to meet you. I'm good.
One more
That'd
time.
be
I know.
Callie.
Callie, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
All
okay.
good.
How you guys doing?
Doing really well.
Tell me about your podcast.
I started it 3 years ago, fresh out of the University of Pittsburgh, because I was addicted to podcasts and there were certain types of shows or just conversations that I wasn't finding or hearing. So the general theme is 30 to 40 minute conversation with folks in very distinct and interesting lines of work. So precisely the role that I couldn't have learned about at the Career Resource Center at the university.
Got it.
That can take a bunch of forms: entrepreneurs, nonprofits, politicians, yada yada. But the general theme of the show is a 30 to 40 minute conversation where we kind of set up what it is that you're doing, try to understand. LegalSifter in and of itself is a pretty distinct concept, but also how you got into it, how it works. And if you think of like the scale of 1 to 10 of, you probably speak close to a 10 when it comes to this union of legal, AI, startup culture. We're trying to bring people from like a 2 to a 5, so
Got
just
it.
get that general fluency in place.
Got it. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
Absolutely. One of the books that I reference the most is called The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly, who was the founding editor of Wired. And he talks about these different technological forces that if you can embrace them, if you can anticipate them, it's just going to make your work over the next few decades a lot easier. And one of those is the prevalence of artificial intelligences with very specific specializations. And his point is really that you need to reframe AI as something that just straight up replaces human beings and makes them obsolete, which is kind of the scary media headline, versus this augmentative, I don't know what the right word for that is, tool that allows the worker to be more efficient, more productive, and just make better use of their time. Is that how you're positioning and selling the services of LegalSifter? How does that kind of balance out?
When I talk in public about LegalSifter, I tell people, particularly the attorneys in the room, I say the future of AI and the law does not pit lawyers versus robots. And the future is lawyers versus lawyers plus robots. You know, in the not too distant future, I don't want to buy an attorney who doesn't have AI looking over his or her shoulder. And why wouldn't you? Yet the nature of an attorney's job, the empathy required, the confluence of analysis that's required, is beyond any technology that exists on the planet today. So what is possible is that attorneys can use pieces of artificial intelligence like little helpers, and they're going to supplement, you know, their existing workflow with tools that were never before possible. You know, lawyers think and read and write for a living, and they get a lot of grief for not adopting technology. But the truth is, they haven't had technology that thinks and reads and writes for a living. And AI does a little bit of that. And so what's going to happen, and what is happening with LegalSifter, is we figured out a way to create little pieces of software that augments or supplements a lawyer and makes them a better attorney.
One of the themes that we've been touching on recently on the show, and just given your experience having been at free markets, having been in the Pittsburgh scene for a little bit of a while, is this narrative that it's hard to find funding in the Pittsburgh ecosystem, and that maybe the mix between fundraising in Western Pennsylvania versus going to a New York, a San Francisco, or just anywhere else to find that capital for your business. Have you found that to be the case? I know that there's kind of a balance of some Pittsburgh money and some outside of Pittsburgh money in LegalSifter right now. How are you thinking about that as you approach the capital raise
there are a bunch of red herrings in those stories. I just don't find them to be as true as people want them to be. And then there's some actual hardcore facts. When you're as an angel or seed stage company in Pittsburgh, you know, for LegalSifter, the angel community really stepped up for us. We did not have and have not had challenges finding angel money in Western Pennsylvania. You know, they invested in the team, they invested in the idea. And I think, you know, if you've got that idea, it's actually a bit of an advantage inside of Western Pennsylvania because there's a pretty strong network of, relatively strong network of potential angel investors that, you know, it's not too hard to find those folks. And once you find one or two, if you've got a good story, they'll tell others, and eventually you'll end up with your round. So I actually, from an angel and seed round, I would say to any startup CEO who might be grousing about that, I would turn them back and say, well, you know, maybe there's a challenge with your story because the money is there. You need to work harder. Now, when you get to our stage, where we are, you know, right at around a Series A, it is different. You know, the truth is there just are not as many institutional investors who are going to write multiple million-dollar checks, which is where we are right now, as there are in other communities like Boston, New York, and Silicon Valley. The numbers are known. And so there's nothing about the Pittsburgh market that prevents the startup CEO from growing and prevents a startup CEO from being successful. If you have a good idea, if you execute, you know, you can reach the global market from Pittsburgh. In fact, with our talent base, you can get there. But it is true that there are just not as many venture firms around here, which means you're going to have to get on a plane, you're going to have to go talk to some people. But the truth is, those people are going to invest if you've got a good story. My firm belief is that those folks are still investing in companies with viable ideas.
Absolutely. I always take it back to sports analogies because that was basically all I consumed as a kid. And, you know, if you look at these, you know, big soccer federations, they'll find the kid in the most remote village with the great first touch.
You got it.
And that's because the stakes for a Manchester United, for a Chelsea, whatever large organization are so high that if they can find it, it's more than worth the investment to go uncover those opportunities. And when it comes to venture investing, that's the very nature of the job. So if the opportunity is there, if the quality and the potential in that relationship is there, it'll get uncovered.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh offers just a wonderful opportunity to differentiate yourself. You know, if you're in the Valley, yes, you have access to all this capital, but you also have tremendously large numbers of other entrepreneurs trying to do the same thing.
And this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
We just went deep with Kevin Miller. Hope everyone out there has a fantastic day. Boom.
How's that?
That was great.
Awesome.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank
That's
you
fun.
for doing this. That was one of the things I'm calculating as the interview's going on is at some point people just kind of get into the flow state and start just like the story start flowing out. And I think it was your third answer. You started like getting into the story and I could just tell that you were hitting a good...
Was that okay?
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
You guys are fun. Now I gotta go back to reality.
Is it cool if we get a picture of you in front of your standing desk in the
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm standing desk. Nice.
That's actually what I was known for at Industrial Scientific.
Really?
It was before all these bare desks, and I had a bunch of paper boxes.
Yeah.
And I had that for like a year. And finally, one of the engineers came by. He was one of those really quiet guys who would never say anything. And he said, I was the only one with a standing desk at the time. And he said, hey, Kevin, I think it's great that you're standing, but you got to get rid of the boxes. They look like crap.
So this is how much we've made from spending $13.39 an act. And they're directly correlated because I have no idea who these people are that bought the tickets. And they're very clearly connected to Facebook ads. So what that tells me is you can overdo it. You can spend so much that you're no longer reaching a targeted demo. But right now we're in this niche where we can spend $1 and make $4. So I love the pickleball idea. I just don't feel like we have the bandwidth right now to execute on it. And there's no reason we couldn't just make that something that we're very focused on doing next summer. And let's get the
the privateer thing done really well. Let's have this done really well. Let's have the Going Deep Summit knock it out of the park one more time. Like, even from a leverage standpoint, maybe I could sell a $250 sponsor to that pickleball thing. I'm more interested in selling the $8,000 sponsor for this Going Deep Summit. And I don't know. I have this like gut sense that after the second Going Deep Summit, the dam breaks a little bit, and then like I can have a conversation about a $25,000 sponsor. And a $25,000 sponsor, we're talking about a $30,000 speaking fee for somebody, $20,000 speaking fee, and that's like that's when it gets really interesting.
Fun fact, chartreuse is actually a lime green color when most people think it's magenta. Idiots.